Hey, what's up guys? How's it going? It's Dakota Fishman here, and today we are going to be talking about what I learned from Dragon Arena. Now, this Dragon Arena wasn't too long ago. I was in a guild called IPP. I usually join in during Dragon Arena or Guild Fest to kind of help them out. They're just a guild that, they're a pretty cool bunch. But the thing is, so we're against a guild called D4R. They're like a 7-ish billion might guild, so not a really super big guild by any means. But out of IPP, we're like maybe one or two of the only tier 4 players in the whole start. So right from the get-go, I know we're going to be dealing with kind of like some tier 3 players and some tier 4 players. It's going to be kind of like a mid-game fight. And so I'm just going to go ahead and kind of give you guys a short synopsis of what I learned, which is that at least in Dragon Arena, right, when you start out, you're going to be fighting for the outposts. And right away, what I found that was pretty strategically important was that right in the beginning, they were stretching themselves thin, but they were going after the enemy outposts right from the get-go. And so we were having like back-to-back defenses between ourselves, like we were having to hold wonders and stuff like that. And it was tricky, because you would try to swap your gear, you would try to swap your phalanxes to try and protect against certain rallies, and you really didn't know what you were dealing with. Like here, I'm just like, I don't know, I'm just doing everything I can in my power to hold what I can, because every person I see is sending any one particular thing. Now like here I got lucky. So and like everything, it's like it's tricky, right? Because going from outpost to outpost and having to stretch yourself so thin, it's really difficult. So like at the time I like got to the point where I was like holding 3 or 4 different positions at a time, and when I've only got like 8 armies, dude, it is tough to do this in Dragon Arena. And really, I have to say, it is one of the few times where admittedly you really have to have a team effort. Now like here, I actually started to question, like, should I solo a guy, should I not solo a guy? I think something that is really powerful about Dragon Arena though is that like if you do find a target and you successfully attack them, in this case I was able to bug him, so I was able to tell him, oh here, so, and he was trying to hide his troops, and this is why you don't do that. You don't ever want to send your troops to a particular location, because then you can just port and random on it. And there I didn't even have to random because he never pulled in time. But even still, whenever I was hitting forts, I was always sending a 1 type to try and counter what was sent, and that didn't always work. Sometimes I would only get so much because of just the way this event is. If you're so thin on troops, dude, you're like working on the bare minimum of what you have at the time. And so I'm like, I'm rushing, right, to do the most I can, but you can see the enemy's already got a vast majority of the buildings at this point, and so we're really falling behind in terms of points. And so things are getting kind of out of hand, and this is the trickiness with Dragon Arena, is that if you can hold the most outposts and the most special buildings like the teleporters and the ancient remains, you can really push a pretty decent advantage that you can withhold against your opponent for quite a long time. And even though we were doing everything we could, it was really frustrating, because once we realized that the certain outposts were taken over, we were like fighting to try and take them out with solos and stuff like that, and it was just difficult because I would have my leader in one fort and couldn't, unless I wanted to kick the troops out, I'd have to stop, kick my troops out, send it to another location, reinforce other positions. Like, Dragon Arena really does kind of put a lot of your emphasis in so many different places. Now, I will say that, like, one thing that without a doubt is, I think something that a lot of people can agree with is that the amount of speed ups you put into this, and how many healing speeds you use, or how many winged boots you use, it doesn't really compare to what you end up getting for rewards. Like, what you spend and what you get is really, really minimal. But I will say this is like one of the few times where I've genuinely felt like there was an actual challenge to this. Where, in Guild Showdown, it's kind of like, well, okay, it's linear, there's maybe a choice and a chance, but Dragon Arena really does push a guild to communicate and really force players to have to, like, hey, we're going to hit this target and then we're going to go after this particular location. And it requires an all-out offensive, really, for a guild to be able to win. Like, you really got to try to be able to actually take advantage of the current positions that you have. And it's also really fun at the same time. And I found it really enjoyable because I didn't have the fear of losing troops. I didn't have to worry about really, in a way, I think Dragon Arena is a really great testing ground for people that want to do kind of before you get really into like hitting rallies on bases and having the loss associated to losing troops and stuff like that. Dragon Arena has turned into like the perfect training ground to really build up these practices and skills that you can then lay out and use with Wonder Wars, Kingdom Clash. Like, I think these are things that you can take and use. So with the resentment that a lot of people have had with Dragon Arena, I really think a lot of people have also been treating it wrong. It's like they're going into it thinking they're going to get a golden prize at the end of the rainbow. But that's really not the point, I think. Dragon Arena is more of like a training ground, if it is anything else. And even there, like, I soloed a fort thinking I could knock it out, and all it took was one counter. Change the phalanx, and you win. And that really goes to show, like, now, had I really sent my troops there, I would have lost on that pretty bad. Now, provided, of course, I'm not sending the maximum I could send. I could send 3.6 mil. Like, there, I came close. I was almost there. I had 1.3 mil to 1.6 mil. But even still, all he had to do was change phalanx, go to cavalry, and he was able to counter my infantry without too much trouble. And so it really goes to show how big of a difference that makes. If you can trick your opponents, one thing I was always really keen on is I would wear one set of gear to give you the idea, I'm going cav phalanx at the start. And then I would wait a few minutes towards like maybe the last 10 seconds or so before that march landed. I would swap back to the actual gear that I wanted to, oftentimes being the counter, So if I was wearing cavalry, you would probably do what? Go range. And so I sent range gear. And now one-on-one is still better than, if I had done anything else. But obviously I got lucky in the fact that this guy went cav phalanx. And so I was able to counter his phalanx, and I was able to win just barely. Now, of course, 1.7 mil to 1 mil, obviously there's a clear victor in that. But still, I can't help but point out the dynamics of these kind of techniques that you can learn while doing Dragon Arena. I will say, though, that, like, in the amount of combating that we did, I was going after caravan posts really early on, and it's really important that you communicate, hey, look, fill this with infantry, or fill this with cavalry, or vice versa. Like, if you're gonna do it, do, a two-type mix, like split 375k, 50% onto two unit types. Like, that's really, really good. Or you can do it mixed, and you could do like 125k split across all three types. Whatever it is that you're gonna do. Obviously, that's with a 50% boost, of course. But anyway, the point is, though, is that, like, I found that a lot of the time there is a lot of stress involved in being able to, like, take over multiple positions at a time. And it's not very difficult to, like, lose those positions, too, at the same time. Because you're so split. It's so easy to, like, in a way, I almost wonder what it is like. If you're up against, like, a few billion byte players, I imagine this is an absolute crazy nightmare. Because the more players that you have participating and that have a really large excess amount of troops, I imagine is just absolutely madhouse. But even still, like, I did everything I could, with what I had. And that's really, I think, something that, what I've learned so far with Dragon Arena is that, right from the start, if you're going to go offensive right from the get-go. Because I think one of the things that really held us back this whole Dragon Arena, this go-around, was that we were too reserved and too defensive. When really, I think the best strategy in terms of Dragon Arena, or really any war for that matter, is that offense is your best defense. And it really shines through even with D4R, where, like, although we were going after, one citadel after the other, down the road, which I think is something that worth pointing out, right? Because even though the outposts were really critical in the beginning, the citadels really carried it towards the end of the game. And once those things open up, man, let me tell you, I think if you can get a hold of the enemy's citadels and yours at the same time, that's a really good way to make a comeback right in the middle of the game. And I really think if we had just had a little bit more time, we might have actually been able to make that comeback. But we were so close. You know, and then I will say that with a couple of these rallies, yeah, I did spin some winged boots for the fun of it, all right? And I'll admit, looking back on this, that was probably not worth it, you know, for what I've done and what I spent. I really, if there's any takeaway from this video, I really would stress, don't spin your winged boots going camp. It's not worth it. It really isn't, not in my opinion. Obviously, I was like more than generous this particular Dragon Arena, but still, it was a lot of fun. I will point out that if I did anything differently, it's that I really do recommend that if you are going to do like one type sets and stuff like that, that you make sure that you use the right unit type when you're doing it. I actually made a few mistakes here and there where I forgot to send, you know, the right gear set for the right thing at the time. Or even, you know, when I was sending it, I wasn't sending it with my leader, so it wasn't really important anyway. Like, I was getting into the habit of doing it, and I say this a lot to guys here on the channel. A lot of people ask me, like, why do you bother swapping your gear if you do not send your leader? Literally, I do it out of habit. Like, if I'm gonna do it, it's because I feel like if I can get that ingrained into my mind and actually teach myself that, hey, if I keep doing this, that I gotta send this gear type, like, that's a good practice to get into. I really do recommend that. But as I said, we were close, but no cigar. We were only 200,000-ish away, but we came close. It was a fair fight, and it was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, though, and make sure to check out the other videos that I have on the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.